Keith Olbermann, perhaps one of the best people to talk to about this, gave all of us the biggest repudiation of Donald Trump and his handling of the coronavirus, and not to mention Donald Trump's little expert, Scott Atlas, that I could ever do. Mr. Olbermann, take him to church.
1,000 dead a day, at least, for the next 63 days, for the sake of Trump's ego. God damn him to hell. When the history of our American times is written, when the story of the COVID-19 pandemic is committed to the textbooks, and our descendants look at the photos of people in masks with the same sort of naive astonishment with which we looked at pictures of people in masks from 1918 and 1919, when all that is placed in the record, Donald John Trump will be viewed as a negligent mass murderer. If history is written, if Trump doesn't kill us all. The Chinese mismanaged the initial outbreak, and the World Health Organization did underestimate the power of the spread of the disease, and local mayors and governors here made tragic mistakes, and even those who knew much better gave fatally mixed messages about masks and disease transmission, and especially about the risk to young people. Mixed messages that are still resonating today and will still kill people today. But of all the human beings on this planet, indeed of all the living beings on this planet, save for the novel coronavirus itself, the most responsible, the most disastrous, the most deadly creature will have been Trump. He will be judged in history alongside Charles Trevelyan and the other British leaders who worsened the Irish famine of the 19th century, and alongside Mao Zedong and Joseph Stalin, who precipitated and then ignored the famines in China and the Soviet Union in the 20th century. Future historians, future students, future Americans, if any, will ponder in amazement and anger that this creature Trump was allowed to exert power and dictate policy that had nothing to do with saving lives or decreasing infection, but merely dealt with how he could make himself more popular and less blameworthy. And on top of that, they will read in disbelief about how it was possible that after an election, he was permitted to retain that power and dictate that policy that killed tens of thousands more, even hundreds of thousands of Americans more, for no explainable reason. We are simultaneously in many different dark tunnels in this country, and January 20, 2021 is the small flickering light at the end of all of those tunnels. And at least 100,000 of us who see that light right now, will not live to see that day because of Trump. Because we do not, as a society, have the will to remove him today. Because we do not, as a society, have the ability to just take the greed of one group of people and just put it on pause for a moment. Because with at least 2 vaccines on the horizon, men mistakenly called leaders not only will not act, but they also will not speak to those who still believe in this madman. Those like McConnell and Pence and any of the idiots on Fox News who could say, but will not say, ignore him, he is failing you, he is killing you. Just that. Because they cannot say the election is over, it is decided, any doubt is fabricated and venal and literally places political power above the lives of 100,000 of us. And there is no excuse for letting a creature to whom other people are mere props continue to rule over us, and for all intents and purposes order the deaths of 100,000 Americans because he's too mentally weak to accept his defeat, and the vermin politicians of his party and the psychotics in his cult are too murderously selfish to say we must cost him his job now instead of letting his ego cost 100,000 of their lives later. History will ask how we let Trump make human beings only the second most powerful species on a planet that is, at least for this time, actually ruled by this virus. History will ask about Trump's quacks, like Mike Lindell and this fraud Dr. Scott Atlas, who responded to news of a Michigan pandemic restriction over the weekend by urging people to rise up against them. Atlas is Trump's current top advisor on coronavirus. He's clearly not qualified for that. He's clearly not qualified to be emptying bedpans. But history will also ask what was in the hearts of the men and women who continued to support this creature Trump after his defeat, after his repudiation, after the national wildfire that was COVID-19 accelerated into this hellscape of conflagration in the days after the 2020 election? Who let Trump continue to run the pandemic fight into the ground? Who let Trump stay manifestly insane as he is in office? Who refused to risk anything, refused to risk even a momentary loss of power to instead be certain that death ruled this nation? Who were these people? Did you put them on trial? Did any of them go to prison? What did you do to Trump after it was clear that he knew what was ahead and lied and lied and lied and lied and lied? What did you do to make sure that no leader could ever commit this treason again? Treason not against the country, treason against humanity. For the last 70 years of his life, the British leader Winston Churchill could recite from memory a poem called The Clattering Train, which he remembered as being printed in his youth in a magazine called Punch, in the edition dated October 4, 1890. A disastrous train crash had been blamed on a sleeping crewman. Part of the poem was this: "Who is in charge of the clattering train? The axles creak and the couplings strain. For the pace is hot and the points are near, and sleep hath deadened the driver's ear, and signals flash through the night in vain, for death is in charge of the clattering train." The White House will not tell you this because Trump's only words about the pandemic have been moronic platitudes of self-congratulation that sound exactly like Hitler's minions assuring Germans in 1945 that they were winning the war. But if you are planning to travel for Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's, or to hold a family gathering, and one survey says 38% of Americans are planning a Thanksgiving dinner with at least 10 people, for God's sake, cancel it! COVID-19 in this country is now in worse shape than it was at the outbreak and the first 2 months of the pandemic, and getting more worse still. COVID-19 will not be significantly altered by vaccines for months to come. COVID-19 is growing exponentially now, and there is no national guidance, let alone a national plan to even do the simplest of things, like wearing a goddamned mask when it's cold out. COVID-19 is about to get even worse still because of Thanksgiving, travel, family dinners, Trump's reinforcement of the idea in the minds of half of this country that freedom means never having to do anything you don't want to do. Super spreaders in cold weather. COVID-19 in the lame duck months of Donald Trump will be remembered for family gatherings at Thanksgiving and family funerals at Christmas because of Donald Trump. God damn him to hell.